Today, we're taking a bit of a shortcut, actually, straight into the mind of one of the 20th century's most profound writers. And we're getting pulled along by just a single gold ring, a truly massive tidal wave, and, well, a woman whose only job was foresight.
Yeah, the source material today is I Sell My Dreams.
Yeah.
It's a spectacular short story from the Nobel laureate Gabriel Garcia Marquez.
Right. This piece, it takes this real-world catastrophe, something that actually happened, and uses it to frame this decades-long mystery about a woman who, well, she quite literally decided to monetize her subconscious.
It's really the perfect vehicle for a deep dive like this, because GGM, or Gabo as people affectionately call him, he didn't just write stories, he built these incredible narrative universes.
He's often called the greatest living Latin American master of narrative.
Arguably, yes.
Yeah.
And his major works, the foundational texts like 100 Years in Solitude, Love in the Time of Cholera, they didn't just snag him the Nobel Prize in 1982. They basically defined an entire global literary movement.
And that movement is exactly what we're diving into today. Magical realism.
Precisely. It's that unique, almost lucid blending of harsh, tangible reality. Things like violence, solitude, that deep human need for love, blending that with something utterly, impossibly fantastical.
Like presenting a miracle as just another Tuesday, a mundane fact.
You got it. And in I Sell My Dreams, he takes this unbelievable premise, that a person can genuinely sell a prophecy, and he grounds it firmly in the stark, kind of cruel economic reality of post-war Europe.
So we're not dealing with some mythical oracle on a mountaintop here.
Not at all. We're dealing with an entrepreneur, basically, an entrepreneur of the unconscious.
Okay, so our mission today, let's unpack this bizarre, riveting story. We'll track the clues starting with that serpent ring all the way to a shared recursive dream.
And ultimately try to figure out what happens when insight itself becomes a commodity.
Yeah, what happens when you actually put a price tag on fate? Let's jump in. And it starts with a real shocker, a disaster in Havana. Right, the story doesn't really ease you in, does it? It starts with just immediate, immense elemental violence.
No preamble. It's 9 o'clock, bright morning sun. The narrator's having breakfast on the terrace of the Havana Riviera Hotel.
A perfect, everyday scene, just enjoying the sun, and then boom, instantly shattered.
GGM uses that specific, calm setting to really amplify the shock. The source talks about this immense wave, a natural disaster, but almost on an impossible scale that just struck the hotel.
It leaped over the Seawall Avenue, the wide four-lane one.
Yeah, it completely cleared it. And it didn't just splash over. It picked up several cars, like actual cars driving or parked, and tossed them like toys.
The description of the impact is so clinical. It almost shifts it from a disaster movie to something more like a surgical report.
It really does. The great entrance window shattered it into a hailstorm of glass. Furniture, tourists in the lobby just thrown around.
But the detail that anchors the whole story, the thing that makes the impossible seem brutally real, is the car embedded in the side of the hotel.
That's pure GGM, pure magical realism. The car flung with the force of dynamite, supposedly.
Yet what follows is almost hyper-realistic, isn't it?
Absolutely. Panic, sure, on all 20 floors. But then this immediate practical response. Cheerful Cuban volunteers, the fire department. They cleaned it all up in less than 6 hours.
So the chaos is managed, quickly even, but the clue, that embedded car, it remains fixed right there in the hotel wall.
Exactly. And the real clue, of course, is what they found inside when a crane finally managed to wrench the mangled car out.
It's a body.
And the description is intentionally gruesome. It's meant to emphasize the sheer, overwhelming power of the sea, a power beyond normal human violence.
She was secured by a seatbelt.
Yes, which ironically did nothing to save her. The force was just too immense. Her face was destroyed, not a single bone left whole, clothes shredded, even her boots ripped apart. It's death by raw, unforgiving nature.
So, a nameless, destroyed body. The police figured out she's the housekeeper for the new Portuguese ambassador and his wife. Just arrived 2 weeks before, driving to the market. Seems diplomatic, unremarkable almost.
Right. But the narrator, he's immediately captivated. Why? Because of one single piece of jewelry.
The key identifier, the thing that pulls the narrator back, 34 years?
It's a gold ring shaped like a serpent with emerald eyes. That serpent, often a symbol of knowledge, prophecy, maybe eternal life, that's the anchor.
And the narrator feels this immediate dread, this fear that this might be an unforgettable woman he knew decades ago.
But then he notes this crucial, frustrating little detail.
He couldn't find out which finger she wore it on. Why does that matter so much? The finger.
Because the woman he remembered, the unforgettable one from Vienna.
Mm-hmm.
She wore their very distinctive serpent ring on her right forefinger.
The index finger, that's unusual, right?
It was then, yeah. In many cultures, that's singers for pointing authority, maybe specific ceremonial rings. For the narrator, who's got this skeptical, almost journalistic mindset already, the confirmation has to be absolute.
So it's not just any serpent ring. It has to be that ring on that finger.
Exactly. GGM uses this tiny, missing piece of information to turn the whole thing from just a weird coincidence into a deeply personal, almost forensic quest. The specific placement is the one data point that could validate the impossible.
The impossible being that the woman he knew, whose whole trade was kind of avoiding fate or predicting it, had herself been swallowed by it decades later, thousands of miles away.
Precisely. It's that meticulous GGM detail that makes the fantasy plausible. The missing finger placement forces the memory to do the work, and it pulls us straight back across those 34 years to post-war Vienna.
Okay, so the narrator's fixated on this ring, and bam, we're transported back to Vienna right after World War II.
And it's the perfect stage, really, for someone who traffics in uncertainty.
The source paints a vivid picture, doesn't it? Not some glamorous imperial capital, but an old imperial city that was broken, turned into a paradise of black marketeering and international espionage.
That description is crucial, because Vienna, then, it sat right between two irreconcilable worlds. East meets West, fear meets opportunity. It's a literal gray zone.
A city defined by scarcity, by uncertainty.
Exactly. So if reality itself is unstable, shaky, then the commodity of foresight, just knowing what might happen next week, that becomes incredibly valuable.
It's the perfect ecosystem for a professional prophet, not as some mystic, but more like a black market provider of certainty.
You nailed it. And he meets her in a student tavern, very mundane setting, over sausage and draft beer, a place defined by poverty, really.
And his description of her is immediate, quite sensual. He notes her splendid soprano's bosom, the languid foxtails on her coat collar.
And the ring, the Egyptian snake ring. Familiar.
And we start getting the first details. Who is this woman?
She spoke this elementary Spanish in a metallic accent. The students, they only knew her by this Germanic tongue twister, Frau Frida.
But she was Colombian, born in Quindio.
Yes, but came to Austria as a child between the wars to study music and voice, apparently.
She's about 30, but looks older, aging prematurely. The source says, rather bluntly, she was never pretty.
A harsh detail, maybe, but it feels necessary. Yes, she was charming and, importantly, awe-inspiring. That combination charm and awe that must have been part of her sales pitch for such an unusual profession.
Right. And then the narrator, committing what he calls a happy impertinence, asks her flat out, how did you end up here in this distant world?
And she gives the defining answer, the line that frames the whole story, delivered simply, devastatingly. I sell my dreams.
I love how GGM just drops that line. It's not presented as some big confession or dramatic reveal.
No, it's like a job title. Like she's saying, I'm an accountant or I'm a bartender.
It's the core of the magical realism right there, isn't it?
Absolutely. The fantastical element selling literal foresight is presented as just a simple economic fact, an ordinary trade in this world of extraordinary chaos. Her dreams are basically a consumable, marketable product.
The magic isn't flashy, it's just the raw material for her job.
Yeah, exactly. And it immediately grounds her in the reality of survival. She's not doing this for glory or cosmic power. She's doing it to make ends meet in a broken city. It reframes prophecy as a high-value survival strategy.
Okay, so if dreaming is her trade, her profession, how does it work? Does GGM give us the mechanics?
He does. He gives us the rules, the system that, in a way, validates her product. Frau Frida, she was the third of 11 children, apparently established this key operational custom almost as soon as she could talk.
Which was?
The dreams must be told before breakfast.
Before breakfast. Why? Is it just superstition?
GGM frames it as a technical requirement, not just a whim, because that's when their oracular qualities are preserved in their purest form. It's almost like a business secret, you know? You need the insight before the noise of the day corrupts the signal.
Like getting fresh data before it gets stale.
Pretty much. And the earliest confirmation of her system's effectiveness came through her brother.
Right. The story about the flood.
Yeah. She dreamed he was carried off by a flood. Now, the mother's reaction, pure superstition, religious fear. She immediately forbids the boy from swimming in the ravine. That's the simple, literal interpretation.
But Frau Frieda, even as a little kid, saw it differently.
Exactly. She showed her talent wasn't just seeing the future, but interpreting it. She corrected her mother's reading, said the dream meant not that he's going to drown, but that he shouldn't eat sweets.
Wow, so she's like a code breaker for fate, not just a receiver of vague warnings.
Precisely. And the mother, now apparently believing her 7-year-old daughter over her own religious instincts, enforced the warning with an iron hand.
Which led to tragedy, unfortunately.
It did.
Bruh.
The boy, frustrated by this infamy, as the source puts it, had a moment of carelessness. Choked on a secret caramel he snuck.
Awful, but strategically speaking for Frau Frieda's future career, it was perfect validation.
Absolutely. It confirmed her interpretation system was superior. The danger wasn't the external thing, the ravine. It was an internal vulnerability, his love for sweets. This established her expertise early on, made her product seem uniquely valuable.
So this reputation, built on tragedy, but still a reputation, is what lets her try this professionally later on.
Yes, when life caught her by the throat during the cruel Viennese winters, as the story says. She needed work. She applied for a job. And when they asked what she could do, what her skills were,
She just told the truth.
only the truth. I dream. She used her validated system as her resume, essentially.
And the family that hired her, they're described carefully, too.
Very refined, wealthy, a financier father, an artistic mother, passionate about romantic chamber music, 2 kids. And crucially, they're described as religious and therefore inclined to archaic superstitions.
So they were the perfect clients. They weren't just hiring a housekeeper. They were hiring a domestic oracle.
Exactly. Her job was simple on the surface. Decipher the family's daily fate through her dreams over breakfast. But her real power shift happens during the war years.
Because reality became even more terrifying than nightmares.
Precisely. The external reality, the horror of the war, was more sinister than anything they could dream up. And when life is that terrifyingly unpredictable, people crave control. Any control.
And Frau Frieda provided that sense of control.
She did. Her predictions went from being advice to basically being commands. The source says her predictions became the sole authority in that house.
Sole authority. That's intense.
Think about it. Handing over your daily autonomy to a dreamer. She decided what they ate, where they went, who they talked to, how they acted. Even the faintest sigh was breathed by her order.
So her insight wasn't just survival management for herself anymore. It was dictatorial security for her patrons.
You got it. And this culminates in the ultimate economic transaction, when the financier father dies.
He doesn't just give her a severance package or a nice bonus.
No. He leaves her part of his estate, a significant inheritance, but with one absolutely staggering condition attached.
Which was?
She had to continue dreaming for the family until her dreams came to an end, whenever that might be.
Wow, so GGM literally writes it into a legal document, a will that mandates buying this purely metaphysical service.
Exactly. It treats prophetic consciousness like an annuity. It enshrines her talent as a necessary financial security mechanism for the family's future. It makes the dreams a perpetual, income-generating commodity. Unreal.
Okay, so Frau Frieda is thriving. She's the ultimate arbiter of fate for this wealthy Viennese family. But she doesn't forget the narrator, the impoverished student.
No, she still visits the tavern. Her unexpected, generous visits were like fiestas, the narrator says, in their otherwise difficult circumstances. She was sharing the wealth, basically.
But the narrator's own encounter with her professional side was much more direct and kind of terrifying.
Yeah, much more personal. One night, amidst what the text calls a beery euphoria, she cuts through the socializing. She pulls him aside to deliver a personal, urgent warning.
She whispered it, right, with this intensity that allowed no argument.
Exactly. I only came to tell you that I dreamed about you last night. You must leave right away and not come back to Vienna for 5 years.
A 5-year banishment, based on some implied, unnamed catastrophe in a dream.
And the narrator's reaction is key here. Psychologically, it's a huge turning point in the story.
He just believed her. Instantly.
Immediate conviction. He boarded the last train to Rome that very same night. Didn't pack much, didn't question it. Just left his life, his studies, everything behind.
That really speaks to the power of belief, doesn't it? He acts not because he saw evidence of a disaster, but because he completely trusted the source.
The truth of the dream itself almost becomes irrelevant. It's the authority of the dreamer that matters. He effectively handed her complete control over his future path.
And the long-term effect on him was profound.
Absolutely. He spent decades thinking of himself as a survivor of some catastrophe I never experienced. Imagine carrying that around, that constant low-level anxiety, living under the shadow of a horror you avoided, which can be almost as psychologically binding as actually living through it.
That kind of sustained caution. It feels familiar, actually, like how we react to modern predictions, economic collapse, climate change, political stuff.
Right. When you believe the source, whether it's Frau Frieda or a news report or analyst, you start making life decisions, pulling money out of the market, changing jobs, moving, not because the catastrophe has actually hit, but because you fear the possibility.
You become a survivor of a doom you haven't even experienced yet.
Exactly. And the narrator's conviction lasted. 13 years had passed by the time he meets her again in Barcelona, and he still hadn't gone back to Vienna.
His justification was just in case.
Just in case. He maintained this permanent state of alert against a potential disaster that supposedly had an expiration date, but he just wouldn't risk testing the system.
So, if the prophecy was real, she saved his life. But at the cost of 13 years of self-imposed exile.
And if the prophecy was fake?
Then she just exalted absolute long-term control over his life through the sheer force of her personality and his belief in her. Either way, the dream dictated his reality.
So, fast forward 13 years from that urgent warning in Vienna.
Right.
The narrator bumps into Frau Frieda again, this time in Barcelona.
It's presented as a chance meeting, but GGM gives it this sense of fate, almost. Calling the timing so unexpected, it felt like a mystery.
Right. And the setting is very different from the Poor Student Tavern. It's grandly public, and it's marked by the presence of a truly larger-than-life figure.
Pablo Neruda, the poet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The meeting happens during Neruda's first visit back to Spanish soil since the Civil War. And GGM, being GGM, doesn't just describe Neruda. He practically turns him into this magnificent, slightly comical literary god.
Yeah, the description's amazing. Moving like an invalid elephant, with a child's curiosity.
And comparing him to a Renaissance pope, gluttonous and refined, always presiding at the table, needing his wife, Mathilde, to tie a barbershop bib around his neck so he doesn't take a bath in sauce.
It's classic GGM hyperbole, right? Using these exaggerated, sensual details to elevate historical figures into legends. It's part of the magical realism.
Absolutely. And the details of that lunch at Carvalho's restaurant really sell it. Neruda's eating 3 whole lobsters,
Which he dissects with a surgeon's skill.
while also sampling clams, mussels, prawns, sea cucumbers from everyone else's plates, all while holding forth about prehistoric Chilean shellfish he apparently carried in his heart.
It's pure indulgence, a celebration of life and the senses. Such a contrast to the fear and scarcity of those Viennese winters.
And then, right in the middle of all this glorious eating, Neruda suddenly tunes his, quote, lobster's antenna, unquote, and tells the narrator someone's staring at him.
And it's her, 3 tables away, Frau Frieda.
Older now, fatter, wearing an old-fashioned felt hat. But, and here's the crucial data point connecting back to Havana, the snake ring, worn on her index finger.
The right forefinger. The specific, peculiar placement he remembered. Confirmation.
Bingo. So the narrator, thrilled by this coincidence, invites her over for coffee. He's eager, actually, to have her show off her prophetic talent. Astound the great poet.
But Neruda's not having it.
Utterly unimpressed. He dismisses the whole idea of a commercial prophet.
What was his verdict?
Sharp and definitive. Only poetry is clairvoyant.
Wow. So he's saying true insight comes from art, from the creative act, not from just sleeping and selling the results.
Pretty much. It's like a meta-critique from one literary giant aimed at the central premise of another story happening right inside that story.
Okay, so Neruda's a skeptic. What about Frau Frieda? Does she update the narrator?
Yes, later during a private conversation while strolling along the Ramblas. She tells him she sold her Austrian properties. She'd retired to Oporto in Portugal.
Living where?
In a fake castle on a hill overlooking the ocean. Sounds quite grand.
And this is where the narrator, the journalist in him, starts connecting the dots about the Viennese financier's will.
Exactly. He pieces it together.
Yeah.
He realizes that, dream by dream, she had essentially taken over the entire fortune of her ineffable patrons in Vienna.
So he concludes, what? That it was all a scam.
He concludes, with what he thinks is journalistic certainty, that her dreams were actually no more than a stratagem for surviving. She wasn't a genuine oracle. She was a brilliant long-game con artist who'd mastered the psychology of her wealthy, fearful patrons.
The dream was the tool, But survival and getting rich were the real goals. That moment kind of demystifies her for him, doesn't it?
It seems to. But then, almost immediately after he reaches this conclusion, she delivers the final piece related to his own prophecy.
The 5-year banishment from Vienna.
She confirms its expiration date, tells him casually, by the way, you can go back to Vienna now.
The ban is lifted after 13 years. But does he feel released?
Not entirely. Even with this new theory that maybe her whole profession was just a clever act, that psychological weight, that fear she instilled, it lingers.
She tells her he won't go back anyway.
Yeah. Even if your dreams are false, I'll never go back, just in case. The caution is ingrained now. It's become part of his character. He'd rather live in cautious exile than risk testing the dream's authority, real or not.
Okay, so logically, maybe the story could end there, right? Frau Frieda unmasked as a successful con artist, now retired in her fake castle.
You'd think so. But GGM isn't really interested in simple, neat conclusions, is he? The day takes this bizarre turn into a kind of philosophical puzzle about shared consciousness.
It starts with Neruda's nap, his sacred siesta.
Right. And the preparations are described as this elaborate ritual, almost liturgical, windows adjusted just so, specific light levels, absolute silence. It treats the most mundane thing, sleep, with this almost religious gravity.
He sleeps, wakes up quickly, like children do, the source says, with the monogram from the pillowcase imprinted on his cheek, a very grounding physical detail.
And then he immediately announces what he dreamed.
Which was?
I dreamed about that woman who dreams.
Okay, dreaming about Frau Frieda. But then he specifies.
Yeah, when they press him for details, the content is just astounding. He says, I dreamed she was dreaming about me.
Whoa, okay, that's deep, recursive. Not a prophecy about the future, but a reflection on the present moment, on their shared existence.
Exactly, it's layered. And the narrator immediately gets the literary connection. He compares it to Borges.
If he hasn't, he'll write it sometime. It will be one of his labyrinths. For listeners maybe not deep into literary theory, what's a Borges labyrinth mean here? Why is that comparison so fitting?
Well, a Borges labyrinth usually refers to something self-referential or infinitely recursive. Think of his stories about infinite libraries, or characters who dream other characters into existence, who then dream them back.
So reality gets questioned because it's constantly mirroring itself.
Precisely. It creates this structure where you can't easily determine the origin point. Who is the dreamer and who is the dreamed? It's a philosophical maze.
That's a huge shift from straightforward prophecy, like A will happen to B. This is more like, I dream that you dream that I dream. It stops being about predicting the future and starts being about how the present moment is constructed.
I've got it. But GGM, being GGM, he doesn't just leave it there with Neruda's dream.
Don't tell me.
Later, as they're seeing Neruda off on his ship, they find Frau Frieda again. She mentions she also took a siesta.
And when they ask her what she dreamed,
she echoes the poet, word for perfect word. I dreamed about the poet. I dreamed he was dreaming about me.
No way! The exact same recursive dream at the same time.
Simultaneously. This perfect mutual mirroring.
Okay, that throws the narrator's earlier conclusion that her dreams were just a stratagem completely out the window, doesn't it?
It has to make him question it, at least. I mean, a con artist can maybe arrange a 5-year exile through suggestion, but how do you arrange a perfect shared metadream with someone like Neruda, who is skeptical of you anyway?
It suggests, what? That the magic is real after all. Or that her power of suggestion is so incredibly profound, it can actually influence someone else's dream state, manifesting a shared reality.
It's a labyrinth, just like the narrator said. Impossible to determine the source. Did Neruda dream her dreaming him, or did she dream him dreaming her? Or did they somehow co-create it? It suggests the power of the dream isn't just in foretelling, but maybe in actually creating a shared experience, binding minds together.
Does Frau Frieda try to explain it?
She kind of dismisses it. Says something like, sometimes with all my dreams, one slips in that has nothing to do with real life. But it feels like a weak explanation, doesn't it? Almost self-deprecating, given how impossible the event seems.
Yeah, her dismissal almost highlights the tension more. The constant push and pull in GGM's work between the gritty, real world and the magic that seeps in.
Right. She needs the practical, economic side of her trade to survive, definitely. But this meta-dream, it suggests there's something genuinely magical there, too. Something that can't quite be contained by a business contract or explained away as just a trick.
And the fact that Neruda, Mr. Only Poetry is Clairvoyant, was the one caught in this psychic loop with her, that says something too.
It really does. It suggests maybe even the great artist, the ultimate skeptic in this scenario, isn't immune to the power of the dream, or perhaps the power of the dreamer herself. Her talent seems to transcend mere commercial viability at that moment.
So after that baffling, maybe genuinely magical moment in Barcelona, what happens next?
Nothing for a long time. The narrator confirms he never saw Frau Frida again. The memory just kind of submerged, only resurfacing 13 years later because of that gruesome discovery in Havana.
Right, the wave, the car, the body, the ring. But the mystery isn't actually solved at the crash site, is it?
No, the final pieces, or lack thereof, come much later. Months later, in fact, in a very polite diplomatic setting.
The narrator runs into the Portuguese ambassador, the employer of the dead housekeeper.
Exactly, at a diplomatic reception. And he can't shake the image, the serpent ring, the wrecked body, so he questions the ambassador directly. This is his final attempt at getting a concrete answer. Forensic resolution.
And how does the ambassador react?
With incredible enthusiasm and admiration for the dead woman. This is really critical. He doesn't just say, oh, she was a good housekeeper. He speaks about her in these glowing, almost reverential terms.
Like what?
You cannot imagine how extraordinary she was. You would have been obliged to write a story about her.
That's high praise, and it echoes the devotion of the Viennese financier, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It shows that whoever this woman was, whether it was the original Frau Frida or maybe a successor, the system still worked perfectly. On a new, refined patron in a completely different country, she clearly commanded respect and authority through whatever her talent was.
The ambassador keeps praising her, but vaguely.
Exactly. Extravagant praise, but it only deepens the enigma. So the narrator, needing to cut through the diplomatic niceties and get to the facts, finally asks the direct, concrete question.
In concrete terms, what did she do?
Right. The bottom line. What was her actual job description?
And the ambassador's answer.
It's the perfect ambiguity that just hangs there, closing the story. He looks surprised, apparently, at the simplicity of the question and answers.
Nothing. She dreamed.
And the story ends right there, on that single, incredibly loaded statement.
So we have all the facts lined up. The spectacular death, the unique serpent ring on the correct forefinger, and now absolute confirmation of the profession dreaming.
All the circumstantial evidence points to it being Frau Frida.
But the narrator never gets that final, definitive, yes, her name was Frau Frida. The identity remains technically unresolved.
And that ambiguity is GGM's final labyrinth for us, the readers, or in this case, the listeners.
We're left to choose, aren't we, between two possibilities.
Equally plausible in their own way, yet deeply incompatible conclusions. Option 1. Frau Frida, maybe having run through her fortune or just needing purpose again, returned to her trade in a new guise with a new employer, only to be caught by the very fate she supposedly helped others avoid.
Or option 2.
Option 2. The trade itself, the system, the interpretation method, maybe even the symbolic serpent ring was so powerful and effective that it could be passed on or copied. Maybe another woman simply stepped into the role of the professional oracle, inheriting or adopting the persona and the tools.
The story refuses to tell us if she was a genius con artist who finally ran out of luck, or a genuine oracle meeting her destiny.
All we know for sure is that the system of selling dreams was so profoundly effective that it either sustained one remarkable woman through decades of turmoil, or it became a kind of self-perpetuating, potentially deadly profession in itself. #tag outro.
So if we try to synthesize this whole deep dive, what's the core takeaway here?
I think it's a really profound statement on the value and maybe the inherent danger of insight itself. Frau Frida's dreams, whether they were just a clever stratagem for surviving or genuine prophecy, they prove that the perception of knowledge, the belief in foresight, can be worth more than actual wealth or physical safety or even objective reality sometimes.
Yeah, it's a brilliant look at how authority works in unstable times. Like in post-war Vienna, the external world was terrifyingly chaotic, so people willingly, almost eagerly, handed over their autonomy to the one person who claimed she could see the future.
Her power came directly from the market demand for certainty in uncertain times.
And that connects right back to you, the listener, doesn't it? The story shows that incredibly fine, often blurred line between getting useful, vetted information and falling into overwhelming, maybe even dictatorial superstition.
Absolutely. The credibility you assign to the source dictates its power over you. If you truly believe your source has foresight, whether it's a dream seller like Frau Frida, or maybe a market analyst or a political pundit today, you will change your life based on their predictions, just like the narrator lived in caution for 13 years just in case.
GGM seems to be using this story, in a way, to critique our own relentless search for information for an edge. We're constantly looking for insight market forecasts, geopolitical predictions, tips from behavioral science, anything to reduce the chaos of the unknown future.
We are all potential clients of Frau Frieda, in a sense, always looking to buy some certainty.
But that labyrinthine ending with the mutual dream and the final ambiguity about the housekeeper's identity, it forces us to ask that critical question embedded right in the title. I sell my dreams.
Right. In a world absolutely saturated with information, where countless people and algorithms claim to sell you the definitive answer or the key to what's next, are we actually buying genuine insight? Insight that can truly protect us from the flood, whatever form that flood takes.
Or are we just buying a very convincing, maybe very high-priced dream?
And here's maybe the final provocative thought to leave you with. If, as that recursive dream in Barcelona suggests, the power of a belief can actually help manufacture a shared reality,
Like the poet dreaming her, dreaming him, and vice versa.
then you have to wonder, was Frau Frieda's trade really about predicting the future? Or was it actually about convincing enough people of a certain reality that they, perhaps unconsciously, ended up manifesting it for her?
Could the deepest, most dangerous secret of her trade be that the dreams don't just predict fate?
They helped create it.
Something to mull over, maybe before your next breakfast.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on the